Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Israeli troops launch raid into Gaza as pressure escalates on besieged territory. Russia detains lawyers acting for opposition leader. Huawei drives $34 billion China stock boom in rare hot trades. WADA says Russian anti-doping agency case will be sent to court of arbitration for sport. Muslim American leader to Biden amid Gaza war, "You failed us." Israeli troops launch raid into Gaza as pressure escalates on besieged territory. The Globe and Mail. Israeli troops backed by tanks have launched the first raids into the besieged Gaza Strip since their government declared war on Hamas. The raids were an indication that Israel is moving closer to a ground invasion of the Strip. The Israeli army also issued an order for the evacuation of northern Gaza, including Gaza City, with the evacuation to be completed within 24 hours. The United Nations warned that the evacuation order would cause panic and chaos and have devastating consequences for over 1 million people. Thousands of Palestinians attempted to leave northern Gaza, but an Israeli airstrike killed 40 people and injured 150 as they tried to leave. The World Health Organization warned that the health system in Gaza is at a breaking point and is rapidly exhausting its final supplies of fuel and medicine. Russia detains lawyers acting for opposition leader. The Guardian. Russian authorities have detained 3 lawyers representing imprisoned opposition leader Alexei Navalny after searching their homes, his allies have said. The move was an attempt to completely isolate Navalny, his associate Ivan Zhdanov said on social media. The raids targeting Vadim Kobzev, Igor Sergunin and Alexei Lipser are part of a criminal case on charges of participating in an extremist group, Zhdanov said. All 3 were detained after the search, apparently as suspects in the case, Navalny's team said on Telegram. All 3 later in the day appeared in court and were ordered to pretrial detention pending investigation and trial. Huawei drives $34 billion China stock boom in rare hot trades. Bloomberg. Unlisted technology company Huawei is sparking huge interest in Chinese stocks, with 32 of its suppliers' combined value rising by $34 billion since the August launch of its latest smartphone, the Mate 60 Pro. The company's chip-making partner, SMIC, saw its mainland-listed shares rise around 12% since the release, whilst EV partner Series Group's shares have more than doubled. This contrasts with the broader market, which has seen the CSI 300 index of mainland stocks fall 5% so far this year. WADA says Russian anti-doping agency case will be sent to court of arbitration for sport. CBC. The Russian anti-doping agency, RUSADA, is disputing the World Anti-Doping Agency's, WADA, assessment that it is non-compliant with the World Anti-Doping Code. WADA had previously stated that Russia would face more sanctions for its non-compliance issues. RUSADA was deemed non-compliant due to non-conformities relating to national legislation. WADA said it would now send the matter to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, for consideration. Among the punishments recommended by WADA's Compliance Review Committee, CRC, is that Russia's flag will not be flown at various sporting events until reinstatement conditions are met. WADA stated that RUSADA cannot be considered for reinstatement until all conditions are met. Muslim American leader to Biden amid Gaza war, "You failed us." Al Jazeera. Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian rights advocates in the U.S. have criticized Washington's unconditional support for Israel's war in Gaza. They have accused the U.S. media and politicians of dehumanizing Palestinians and have warned of hate incidents against Arab and Muslim Americans. Nihat Awad, executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, criticized President Joe Biden for failing to recognize the Palestinians' humanity, saying he was giving Israel the green light to commit genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity. Could an Israeli ground invasion of Gaza meet its aims? BBC. Israel's military operation, Operation Swords of Iron, is aiming to dismantle Hamas and ensure that it no longer has the military capacity to threaten or kill Israeli civilians. The operation involves a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, which carries immense risks to the civilian population due to house-to-house urban fighting. The military also has the added task of rescuing at least 150 hostages held in unknown locations across Gaza. However, military analysts believe that Israel cannot completely dismantle every Hamas member due to the extremist ideology of the group. Instead, the objective is to weaken Hamas as much as possible so that it has no operational capabilities. The success of the operation is dependent on several factors, including the preparedness of Hamas, the duration of the campaign, and international pressure to end the conflict. The fate of the hostages, many of whom are foreign citizens, will also influence military planning. It is unclear what will go in place of Hamas if it is significantly weakened, but there are suggestions that the return of the Palestinian Authority and a more pragmatic neighbor for Egypt could be possible. The Secret Life of a Spy Heroine revealed. BBC. Phyllis Latour, the last surviving female secret agent who served in Winston Churchill's Special Operations Executive, SOE, during World War II, has died at the age of 102. Latour, whose code name was Genevieve, was responsible for sending vital intelligence from inside enemy territory to London. She provided precise locations for the RAF to bomb and instructed where to drop equipment. Latour's previously classified SOE file has been released by the National Archives, revealing her dangerous work as a spy behind German lines. Following her wartime career, Latour, who was born in South Africa and moved to New Zealand after marrying, rarely spoke about her experiences. UK's nuclear fusion site ends tests after 40 years. BBC. The world's most successful nuclear fusion reactor, the Joint European Torus, JET, will end its last test this week. Nuclear fusion is the process that powers the sun and other stars and releases a lot of energy without greenhouse gas emissions. JET holds the world record for the most energy produced from a fusion experiment, but is still a long way off producing enough energy to power homes. The UK government has committed £650 million, $826 million, to a domestic fusion energy strategy, including a new prototype fusion energy plant called STEP. U.S. military to begin draining leaky fuel tank facility that poisoned Pearl Harbor drinking water. The Toronto Star. The U.S. military plans to begin draining fuel from World War II-era underground fuel tanks in Hawaii, nearly 2 years after the facility leaked jet fuel into a Pearl Harbor drinking water well. The fuel removal is a key step towards shutting down the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility as demanded by the state of Hawaii. The spill in November 2021 poisoned the Navy's water system, serving 93,000 people, and continues to threaten an aquifer used by Honolulu's municipal water utility to serve 400,000 people. The removal process is expected to take around 3 months. At UN, Palestinians call for halt to Israeli offensive, world powers mull options. Reuters. The Palestinian United Nations envoy, Riyad Mansour, has called on UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres to do more to prevent a crime against humanity by Israel. Israel has warned nearly half the population of the Gaza Strip to relocate, as it plans an assault on the area. On Friday, countries urged Israel to hold off attacking northern Gaza, where over 1 million civilians largely defied Israel's order to evacuate. Russia has proposed a draft resolution for the UN Security Council, calling for a humanitarian ceasefire and condemning violence against civilians. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friendly neighborhood 6 doctor here, bringing you the latest news from around the world. Today, we have a mix of serious and fascinating stories to share, so let's dive right in. In the Middle East, tensions between Israel and Hamas have escalated further, with Israeli troops launching raids into the besieged Gaza Strip. These raids, backed by tanks, are a clear indication that Israel is moving closer to a ground invasion of the territory. The situation is dire, with the United Nations warning of devastating consequences for over 1 million people. The health system in Gaza is also on the verge of collapse, with supplies of fuel and medicine running dangerously low. Moving to Russia, the authorities have detained 3 lawyers who were representing imprisoned opposition leader Alexei Navalny. This move is seen as an attempt to isolate Navalny further, and it's a worrying sign for anyone who values freedom of expression and the rule of law. On a lighter note, unlisted technology company Huawei is making waves in the Chinese stock market. The release of its latest smartphone, the Mate 60 Pro, has sparked a surge in the value of its suppliers' stocks. This is quite a feat, considering the broader market has been on a downward trend this year. In the world of sports, the Russian anti-doping agency, RUSADA, is disputing the World Anti-Doping Agency's assessment of its non-compliance. This dispute will now be taken to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, where a decision will be made. The implications could be far-reaching, with potential sanctions and restrictions on Russia's participation in sporting events. Turning our attention to the United States, Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian rights advocates are criticizing the Biden administration for its support of Israel's war in Gaza. They accuse the U.S. media and politicians of dehumanizing Palestinians and warn of hate incidents against Arab and Muslim Americans. The pressure is mounting on President Biden to take a stronger stance and address the concerns of these communities. In other news, Israel's military operation in Gaza aims to weaken Hamas and ensure the safety of Israeli civilians. A ground invasion of the Gaza Strip is part of this operation, but it carries immense risks for the civilian population. The fate of hostages held by Hamas and the duration of the campaign will also have a significant impact on the outcome. It's a complex situation with no easy solutions. As always, we have some historical tidbits for you. Phyllis Latour, the last surviving female secret agent of Winston Churchill's Special Operations Executive, has passed away at the age of 102. Her previously classified file has been released, shedding light on her dangerous work behind German lines during World War II. We salute her bravery and dedication. In the scientific realm, the world's most successful nuclear fusion reactor, the Joint European Torus, is ending its last test. While it holds the record for the most energy produced from a fusion experiment, it's still a long way from powering homes. The UK government is committed to developing fusion energy and has allocated funds for a new prototype plant. Lastly, the US military is finally taking steps to address the pollution caused by World War II-era underground fuel tanks in Hawaii. These tanks leaked jet fuel into a Pearl Harbor drinking water well, threatening the health and safety of thousands of people. The removal process is expected to take several months but is a necessary step towards preventing further environmental damage. That's all for today's news roundup, folks. Remember, these are just highlights, and there's always more to the story. I encourage you to delve deeper, form your own opinions, and join the discussion. So, what are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any burning questions? Let's hear it. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.